Hello, everybody. Wild Man Z here with another review. This time, another bodybuilding book. I pulled a bunch of old ones out of a box I found. This is actually one I had when I was a kid, although clearly I've repurchased it in recent years because it has a Thrift Books label on it. I probably have the original around here somewhere, although it wasn't past my mother to throw my old stuff out. She really hated bodybuilding and working out and weight training, things like that. It's funny because when I was a kid, my mother and my grandmother particularly used to love like boxing and like violent sports like that. Really boxing, because that was all we had. If the Olympics were on, they would watch that. But they really liked boxing. Like on Monday nights, I think it was, the fights were on. And they liked guys who would go out there and, like, especially my grandmother, mix it up. Like one-on-one fighting. But like bodybuilding to them was always kind of like, they thought it was for guys with insecurities. I'll never forget, like, when Arnold came on, I believe it was the Merv Griffin show back in the day. My grandmother was like, she had a disdain to German people, even though we're part German. Don't ask me why. But she kind of imitated him. She called him some derogatory names and said his muscles looked like big bags of potatoes, and he probably had an inadequacy or a masculinity problem. That's why he was lifting so many weights, and, real hater. But they liked, on the other hand, guys like, this was back in the time of like Ali and Spinks and, Larry Holmes and guys like that. They would watch those guys, Sugar Ray, fighting all day. They thought those guys were cool, but like bodybuilders, they thought they were kind of weak and ineffectual, particularly my grandmother. So that, they probably threw some of these books out when I moved out of the house, but here's a copy of it at least. This is Hardcore Bodybuilding by Bob Kennedy. He was editor-in-chief of Muscle Mag International, which was not a Joe Weider. That's Muscle and Fitness, and later Flex and Shape, the more popular bodybuilding magazines. This was kind of more of a hardcore bodybuilding magazine. Like, they might talk about steroids in there. And they would have bodybuilders that were just not from Joe Weider's federation. That was the IFBB. They would have other federations like NABA and WABA. These were more European. Some of them very old and traditional. One of my guys who I know, not really a friend, but an acquaintance, won the NABA Amateur Universe and took second in the Pro Universe, NABA. And that was a very prestigious contest back in the old days. It still goes on, but it doesn't have the prestige of the Olympia. But on the cover here is Tom Platz. You can't see the face, but you can see the tremendous legs. In this bodybuilding book, he was like would be like a mass monster for back in the day. This book came out in like 82 or the beginning of 83. I'm not sure where I got it back in the day. I usually like to think about, remember where I purchased it, but I remember a lot of the stores, like Sears and things like that, would have a book section or have a section of books near the athletic section. And I probably picked it up there. It was probably something my mother let me get for my birthday or something like that. I didn't have a lot of money. I was probably about 12 years old when this came out. But I remember getting it when it was a new book, and I was just getting into working out in 83. As I said in a prior video, that's because I remember I started working out because of Sammy Burnett winning the Mr. Olympia. I really liked his physique. Really wanted to be a muscle guy. When you're younger, you're delusional. I did not have the body type where I was ever going to look like a guy like this. This was Sergio Oliva, one of the greatest physiques. Got to see him on stage past his prime, but he was still very impressive at the Mr. Olympia. His son competes to this very day, and I saw him take his son after he took 7th or 8th place and hold him up on stage as a newborn baby and say, "This is the future myth." With new structure like this, he's got like no waist and he's got no hips, unlike a lot of the guys today that are blocky as hell. This guy had a beautiful flowing physique. The arms, the optical illusion is they almost look as big as his waist, and the forearms are massive compared to like the size of his head. So it's a lot of this is optical illusion because the parts that are supposed to be big are long muscle bellies and filled out. And the parts that are supposed to be small, the bone structure is such that it's small. That's a God-given thing. But when you 12, 13 years old, 14 years old, even when you're later in your teens, you don't know about genetics. And this was back in the day. Genetics was not taught in biology. We learned like the xylem and the phloem and things like that when I was a kid. We didn't really know. We know like Mendelian genetics, but we really didn't have a good grasp of DNA. There's Tom Platz posing on the inside. And you can see tremendous, whole physique's tremendous, but the legs, even in that crouch position, you can see the size of the hamstrings and the calves and just massive. Good back, good arms, but definitely the legs overshadowing it. I met him in the late 80s at he was guest posing at a contest I was at, and they go through the normal working out they talk here about types of equipment, and we didn't have all fancy equipment here. Talking about solid weights versus Olympic weights, dipping belts, sweat bands, things like that, because we didn't have fancy equipment back then. The first gym I went to, we had dumbbells going up to hundreds. That was good. We had plenty of free weights, flat benches, inclines, no decline at first, no pec deck. No cable crossover, but we had a lat machine. You could do low rows on the bottom. You had to set up a board. T-bars, we used to do them in the corner. We had a machine you could also weight load stuff on, but you couldn't put a lot of weight on it, but it tipped over. So we used to just put the weights on a bar in the corner, and we rented the club, and I remember we started to grind a hole in the wall, and the owner of the place, he didn't own the gym, he owned the whole building, came down there one day and said he knew what was going on. He's like, "What's going on with the corner of the wall?" And we're like, "There's rats in here." Like, he was like, like that. Like, he knew we were doing, he didn't know what the exercise was called, but he knew we were doing some kind of a weight grinding exercise in the corner, wrecking his wall. But he kind of was a cool guy. He was a bow hunter. His name was Wayne. He was a really awesome guy. He actually would take me out. There was tennis courts out back, and we would shoot a bow and arrow in the wintertime. Here's my man who looks like Zeus here. That's Jessup Wilkos. He was a German bodybuilder. He was friends with Arnold. And I saw him compete. He took third in the 1984 Olympia. I was there. He had a very chiseled physique. Impressive. He passed away as well in recent years. Here's another guy's physique I always liked back in the day. That was Harold Poole. I've actually seen him not on stage. He was a little older when I saw him. He was maybe in his 40s, early 50s. He was bulkier than that, heavier. You can see him in Pat Benatar's Love's a Battlefield video. Mixed race guy, really big, just acting as a bouncer in the background, just bulky. He wasn't really cut at the time. He was unfortunate because he had a really beautiful physique. You look at the wide delts on the guy, a nice small waist, and very good. They don't show it in the picture, but really good legs. Harold Poole. He had a lot of things going for him. I'm just going to tell you straight up. Multiracial. I mean, my friend Charlie knew him, and he was a combination of black, white, and Native American. This guy Harold, which is we're talking back in the '60s. He was competing against Larry Scott, who was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy. And number two is Harold, and I met him, and I noticed this. He had a problem, would say, we call it stuttering back in the day. It's called there's some more technical term these days, but he had a stuttering issue, which in the old days in bodybuilding, not so much the IFBB, but in some of the other federations, it would kind of be like a beauty contest where they had to speak after contests and things like that. And so, he had a lot of strikes against him. But the guy, when he was in his prime, had an amazing physique. Harold Poole, he's passed away as well. Here's a dude I'd never seen on stage, but I used to like him when I was a kid. That was Tim Belknap, really bulky guy. I was kind of a bulky kid. So, when I was a kid, I liked a lot of the bulkier guys. Thick waist, kind of powerful build, but he's interesting. He was diabetic, and I've read articles by him or interviews with him where he talked about he was using insulin as for his diabetes, and you notice when he took a little more insulin that he would get really pumped up in the gym. He started taking a little bit before he worked out and loading carbs, which he really shouldn't have done for his health. But in these days, insulin is both short and long chain. Are used a lot by bodybuilders, including guys that aren't that good. I have guys I know in the gym who are in their 20s who use it as another anabolic agent. And to me, it's more dangerous than steroids because you're not going to acutely die from taking a shot of steroids and overdose. You'll have progressively long-term problems with your vascular system. Primarily, your LDL, HDL levels get thrown off. You can cause enlargement of heart over a long period of time and so forth. But you're not going to take a shot of steroids provided it's real drugs and just, But with insulin, yeah, you can overdose with that. And guys do. Here's a guy who's still around doing some, looks like upright rows of shoulders. Charles Glass. Charles Glass is these days, he's probably late 70s. He's a master trainer. He trains all sorts of guys that are going to shows. I saw him on stage. He was very athletic. He could do a backflip. He wasn't a huge guy, but very cut glass. And here's one of my favorite bodybuilders. Let's get a good picture of him here. That's my man, Serge Nubret. Dude had a fantastic physique, absolutely chiseled. Amazing abs, deep chest, great arms, just incredible build. He passed away, unfortunately, about 10 years ago or so. Here's a guy all the kids love these days, Mike Menser. Now, Mike Mentzer probably wasn't talking about it in this book, but in his own books, he was a proponent of his own training system he called heavy duty. I actually tried it back in the day, and it got me strong, but I wasn't really growing from it. It kind of like, it did its thing, and then I kind of moved away back to more conventional training. But heavy duty is a system of going like, you do a little bit of a warm-up, but then you do like one all-out set. So let's say you're doing incline dumbbell presses, like normally if I was working out back in the day, I would do the 70s for 15, 20 reps, the 80s for 12, 15 reps, and we only had hundreds. Let's say I would do the hundreds for like 10 reps, let's say, but I would do 3 or 4 sets of that. 3 or 4 sets, and I always train like close to failure, but I don't like to go like, oh, I don't like to fail. I like to go like 85, 90%. He wasn't with that. He's like, you do one set after you get warmed up, but then he would tell me to pick up those hundreds, to go 110s if we had them, and push it to failure. If you can do 10 easy, he wants you to do 12, 15 reps, and then he wants you to add more weight the next time. Always using more weight, always pushing up. And what I found for myself when I tried it for a couple months, and kids talk about it online, but like I always say, like, do you actually try these things? Like you're talking about the theory of it working, but like you need to try different methods. For me, what happened was on my big lifts, like my squatting and benching, I would eventually, after a couple weeks of being on that, I would reach a maximum in terms of like doing 8 or 10 reps, and it just didn't progress anymore. And so what I find by going back to a conventional sets and reps scheme, that like I was able to kind of trick the system and you start to grow again. And then like I do, even to this day, I still do some of the things in line with what he says. Like there's times where I'll train and I'll do less sets and exercises, kind of keep it to a minimum because I'm just wanting my body to get some recovery in better, but other times I like to pump up the volume. So people are very dogmatic and takes what some of these guys say because they have good builds like too seriously. Like ultimately a guy like this, that's another picture of Mentzer. I think that's Mike. He had a brother named Ray, looked very similar. They were twins, I believe. The ultimate bottom line is, the people always say steroids. No, the ultimate bottom line is genetics. You can have, bad genetics and take all the steroids in the world, and you'll get bigger, but you're never going to have a physique like a top competitive bodybuilder who's good. Not some of the modern guys look like crap, in my opinion, but like these guys who I'm pointing out here who have nice physiques, that's a genetic gift. The drugs will enhance it a lot, depending on what you do. But if you look at pictures of Arnold Schwarzenegger or Serge Nubret when they were young, teenagers, you're like, damn, that guy had a build. And so it's funny, like I was online, they were showing guys from like 1890 to like 1940 before they were ever steroids. And check out Tom Platz's quadricep here. And kids were on there, like, these were real pictures. I've seen these pictures in actual books back in the day. Guys like, I think his name was George Hackensack. These were like Eugene Sandow. Guys like, oh, they were on steroids back then. They had steroids over there. Those are AI pictures. You guys are fools. I'm like, no, those are real guys. They had very impressive physiques, albeit most of them weighed about 180 pounds. And so they're cut. They're like a lot of male gymnasts. Guys, oh, they're all on steroids. No, it's called somebody having a good physique. It's like just because a man's muscular has a little bit of size, a guy who's on steroids who's got good genetics, you'll know. When you see a guy who's 270 and 5'9" and ripped, that's drugs. When you see a guy who's 5'9" and cut and 185, that's very doable if you're a well-built man. I have used steroids. But there was times in my life when I've trained without steroids for years, and you're not going to hold the effects from steroids years and years later, where I've been 230 in really good shape with abs and striations and all that. And like, I've been training 20 years at that point or 15 years. And it's like, I would be 260 like that if I was on drugs. And it's, I think people, they don't want to say that, like, I can't do everything that I've put my mind to. That's the truth. Is bodybuilding is like any other sport. It's got a huge genetic factor. Here's a good picture of Arnold. And you can see, tremendous upper body. I always thought the thighs were a little weak. He's a guy who knew how to show his strong points. You'll never see without being forced to, Arnold doing a side tricep or an overhand ab shot because he doesn't have good development in those areas, but he'll hit a bicep shot, a chest shot all day long. This was when women started working out in this time period. There was a movie that came out in the 80s called Pumping Iron to Women. Rachel McClish won the first Miss Olympia. And, this was be like an athletically built women these days. And I know a lot of girls, I've talked with some of them because I'm a chemist, so they, and I know about these type of things. They'll ask me drug advice and things like that. And there's certain battery drugs women do take, steroids I'm talking about, like women will tend to use Anavar. It's a milder steroid, provided it's real Anavar. Primobolan, provided it's real Primobolan. You get it from the wrong person or the wrong source, and they sell you testosterone instead of Primobolan, you got some problems. Or if they sell you Dianabol or something like that instead of Anavar, you got some problems. They also take things like clenbuterol, and all women have a tendency to have a hard time getting cut. But back then, these women were either all natural or very close to being such. Like if you look at Rachel McClish, Carla Dunlap, women who won Miss Olympia, they're very feminine in the classical sense. And I really don't get, like, a lot of these fitness figure women who compete and they get their body fat down to single digits, they lose their menstruation cycle, they look grinchy in the face, they look dried out, and they're on, some of them are on anabolics. I don't find it attractive. I mean, you can do what you want with your body, but I like these old school women. They were healthy, they looked feminine, they're having a good time in the gym, they're lifting weights, and they're doing what they should do. It's like, I've used male hormones, but I sure as hell wouldn't take female hormones. So, when women are taking anabolics, those are basically male hormones. I don't get it. But my friend Charlie, his girlfriend, Kathy, she was this Italian girl. Unfortunately, she passed away a couple of years ago. She could have won the first Mr. Olympia. Her physique, naturally, she never took a drug in her life, was incredible. No waist, incredible hips, leg structure, wide shoulders for a woman. Just an incredible physique. Unfortunately, her life didn't last as long as I figured she'd live to be 100, but, people get sick. Here's my man, Chris Dickerson. He's a New Yorker like I am. He passed away a couple of years ago, but he was well in his 80s at the time. Seen him in real life, both on stage. I saw him a little bit past his prime. I saw him at the 84 or 80 Olympia. Maybe I saw him at Night of Champions too, but I know I saw him at the 84 Olympia. He won the Mr. Olympia in 81, I want to say, 82. But he kind of was older when he won it. Like he won it on his last wind, I would say, as a high level competitor. I mean, I'm not dissing any of these guys. I mean, this guy look great. Not a big guy. He's 5'7", 185, 190 maybe. And I met him in real life. I was a big kid, once I started lifting weights, I got up to 250, 260. I was stocky, but bigger. And I stood next to the guy, I said, wow, this guy's he has a nice shape physique, but I thought he'd be a lot bigger. And it was but on stage when I saw him, he was pretty impressive. And he was a great singer. He was gay. It was the first time I actually met a pro bodybuilder was he seemed to me overtly gay. It was kind of interesting because they don't tell you, they didn't talk about stuff like that in the old days. Here's some classic guys here on stage. You see in front, black dude, that's Al Beckles, and the guy next to him over here, that's Boyer Code, a Raging Cajun. This is how physiques looked back in the days. These guys would be in modern bodybuilding. They'd be like the classic bodybuilders. They'd be guys like Chris Bumstead, Ramon Dino, whatever his name is, the dinosaur guy from Brazil. I like him. He's got a good physique. Urs, that guy. I mean, these guys got good builds. I like a lot of those guys. I like them a lot better than the open class bodybuilders. They remind me of the guys I grew up with. They're lighter, but chiseled and more separated, less drugged out. Their bodies are cosmetically enhanced a little bit from the drugs, but they're not living on the drugs. And there's a difference. I mean, the world isn't black. I'm older. I take testosterone to stay, keep my test levels up. So people, you're on drugs. Whatever. It's, on the other hand, I'm against the abuse of anabolic steroids. If you take a small amount to enhance yourself a little bit, just be aware of the side effects, and, realize that it's not a miracle. But on the other, and you're older, I think for older men, when your testosterone is getting low, to me, it's a smart move, provided you don't have heart issues or lipidic issues in your body, and then you have to be cautious and do it with medical. You should always do it with medical supervision. So I don't bear any the stigma associated with those drugs. To me, they're just another class of drugs. Again, I'm a chemist, so I think of it differently. Here's my man Muhammad Makali showing you some of his posing routine. He was trained for. He did really well in so many Mr. Olympias. He took second place to Samir Benout, and I want to say 83, and I saw him take second place in 84 to Lee Haney. These are two guys with some of the best physiques ever. And this guy was like short. He's like 5'3", master poser. He was a master of artistic posing. He would use his hands and move his body, and we call it transitioning when you move in between poses. And a transition, like these days today, the guys go up there and they kind of clap their hands in the air like, hey, I'm here, a big dummy, and like, ooh, they hit a shot and like they're like clapping, hey, I hear and cheer you. They do all this and it's like they walk around. It was like big dummies. These guys weren't like that. They'd come out. The ones that were good. There was a couple guys that couldn't pose it well, but like somebody like him or Samir Benoud or Frank Zane, and I haven't seen Zane, but I've seen the other guys, they'd come out and they would have the right music on and they would do like this posing routine. It would be like gymnastics or like ballet. It would be really like, wow, that was cool, you know. Even if they didn't do splits and things like that, although some of them could do that, it was just a way that they would show their bodies. And they realized what was strong in their body and what was weak, and they would present it in such a way with angles and with accentuation. Like Chris Dickerson, one guy I showed you, the black guy who was, I said I saw locally and on stage, he didn't have great biceps, but he would hit a double bicep in a way where he would clench his forearms, which he had nice forearms and nice triceps and nice abs, and he would hit in such a way that you would see the forearms bulging out, and you would see like the intercostal and all those muscles kind of coming in, and you wouldn't sit there and say like, wow, his biceps aren't that big. You'd be like, wow, that look cool, because you're looking at it as like a piece of art, because he's presenting it like art. Art is, you know, something that first and foremost has to be presented like a work of art. And when you see a guy walk out there, like a lot of the modern pros, like, I can't think of these guys. There's one new guy who's German with a bald head. I can't think of his name. Big German guy who comes out. He looks like he's defeated. Like he comes out there like in the Mr. Olympia. I'm like, wow, this guy's got a pretty good build, and he looks like he's sad. Like just very, you know, just a lackluster appearance, and he poses, it's kind of going through the motions. So they go through all these chapters in here, all about these different training techniques, and I read these like you wouldn't believe back in the day. This is always a popular pose. You see a lot of pictures of like, there's a picture here of who is it? It looks like Greg DeFurro choking Roy Callender. I've seen a similar picture of, I think, Bob Paris choking Lee Haney. Like, guys would kid around back in the days. Everything wasn't so serious, you know. We want to go back in the day. This was way before my time. That's Reg Park. Now, people will sit there and say steroids, this and that, but this guy looked like that in the 1940s. It's like, you know, I know they developed, for the Nazis in World War II, they developed some testosterone, but that guy very well might have looked like that naturally or with maybe testosterone, but like people are really crazy when they think that like some of these guys are all drugs. I'm like, yeah, some of the modern guys, but some of these old-time guys, you catch them when they're not on drugs, or you catch them when they were young, and they'll still look freaking better than most people by a mile. It's like, I think people are really here was the first real muscular woman, like really muscular. That's Bev Francis. I've met her quite a few times. She owns a gym on Eastern Long Island, not far. Well, it's, you know, a half hour from me. It's in Syosset, New York. She still owns it. It's Bev Francis Powerhouse Gym. Very nice woman. She's Australian. Bev is an older woman now. She's probably about 70. Really nice. But she was built like very advanced in terms of bodybuilding for her time. And she's in Pumping Iron too. She's sort of the foil to, I want to say, Rachel McClish's character in there. Bev is a super nice woman. They kind of portrayed her as like this ubermensch type of like, you know, woman, but she was a track athlete, and, you know, her body responded really good to weight training, and she was just very muscular, you know. It's, I'm sure she did a little something, but probably not much more than girls did in her time period. She just had, you know, a very muscular physique. She was the first woman to bench press 300 pounds. Here was a muscular guy back in the day who's passed away. That's Rocky DeFurro. Real muscular, Herculean build, you know, kind of thicker in the waist, but with a good flow still. He just had a thick build. You got a lot of contrasting physiques here. You know, here on the top is Lance Dreyer, massive arms, and below him is Bill Grant. Another guy with great arms, a little leaner build. Bill Grant's still around. I don't know about Lance Dreyer, but Bill Grant still shows up. About 70-something, like, you know, he's like Arnold. He looks one of these guys who just looks fantastic, probably look fantastic till the day he dies, you know. It's, you know, some of these guys have really, you know, has some good longevity, and so I don't think they abuse the drugs as much as some people think they did. It's, to me, it's the common way out these days to just say, oh, it's drugs. It's drugs. Drugs do play a part. But, like, here's two guys I used to love back when I was younger. On the right here, that's Roy Callender. I've seen him on stage. And this guy I've never seen. That's Casey Viator, another Raging Cajun. All these guys from Louisiana, always Raging Cajuns. They always call him that. I'm not sure. I think they used to call that guy Sugar Bear. He was another Southerner. I think he's from Baton Rouge or somewhere like that, Louisiana. He wasn't one of the big weeder guys. He'd kind of show up and just be really big and cut and just blow guys away. And they're like, who the hell's that? Like, damn, that's Casey Viator. He was kind of like a redneck. He'd just come in and just tear it up. But yeah, they have a lot of good exercises in here. It's just an old book showing you how people used to train, which is, I still train like that. Here's a good exercise you hardly ever see people doing in the old these days. If you look down here, he's doing a curl laying down. It's kind of like you do incline curls, but you just lay down on a bench. And we used to do them because we didn't have a lot of equipment. So you had to make stuff up. And that works really good. Try it with a lightweight. If you curl normally 40-pound dumbbells, try it with 15s or 20s. And not a lot on cardio. We didn't do a lot of cardio. Well, I say that we did cardio. We just didn't call it cardio. We played basketball and play frisbee and run around. And I used to hit a heavy bag all the time and walk everywhere, ride my bike. But we didn't sit on a bike in the gym and do cardio. We just did exercise. we were just doing actual real exercise and not sitting looking out at a wall in front of us going up and down. I would rather play basketball. We used to have a basketball court outside the gym. We'd go play 21 or pick up games all day, so probably got more cardio than modern people. But anyway, just want to show you the, I don't know whose abs they are, but these abs that's about as good as you get. Those are some nice deep abs. Well, anyway, I'm running out of time. Just want to talk about working out because I'm too sore to work out today and show you this old book. These are all cool. If you're into working out and you just like nostalgia and you're older or you're young and just like old stuff, check out the book. It's called Hardcore Bodybuilding. You're not going to learn much from it. I mean, just old school techniques. If you know how to do curls and bench press and squat, I mean, you're good. But, it's fun to look at the pictures and, read some of the routines these guys did. I mean, it's nothing mind-blowing about any of it. It's lifting weights. I tell people you can learn what you need to know about lifting weights in the first couple weeks of training, then just nuance it from there. It's not rocket science. Not rocket science. So at any rate, Wild Man Z out on that note. Have a good day.